The real estate market is open. Ramos Design Build is Tampa Bay's premier construction company. This is a program where the real estate experts are live. Whether buying, selling, building, or designing, Ramos has the answers. Now, here's the area's best resource for all things real estate, James Ramos.
Welcome to the first edition of the Move With Me program with James Ramos, Ramos Design and Build, and jamesramos.com, your industry expert for everything from home buying to home selling to renovation to new construction to real estate market, everything James Ramos. James, thanks for being here.
It's great to be here, Dan.
When you look at the Hillsborough County area, obviously your family, you're a legacy builder down here in the Tampa region. Talk to me a little bit about that. When your family started in the construction world, what did you view that as when you were a young guy?
Oh, I grew up I was the youngest of 5 boys. So my father was a general contractor, and all my brothers, except one, is a banker. We're all leaned toward construction because that's all we knew. My dad, he finished his school with a GED. My parents eloped to Georgia somewhere. They got married, came back, and he had to start working. So, but it's amazing, to be born and raised in Tampa and to see the growth of this great city. Especially when people come down. I'm in the real estate brokerage world as well. So we see so many people that come down. They want Tampa Bay. They don't necessarily know what part. Yeah. Whether it's Pinellas or Hillsborough. Yeah. But it's great to see the entire, Tampa Bay area growing like it's doing and all the construction that's going on right now.
Yeah. So when you first got into the construction business, was your dad taking you around to work sites when you were a kid? Were you wearing hard hats at 10 years old that were bigger than you? Walk me through that a little bit.
We weren't hanging around the house just watching TV much, because if we were, he was always pulling us, to come with him. And, we would go to his office, and I would call my mom for help to say, come and pick me up. It was in Drew Park area, so she wouldn't come very, very many times. So it was not as much fun as you would think, because he was a workaholic, but it was fun.
What are the child labor laws, but probably not that.
I remember my cousin TJ and I. We had to work during the summer. My dad was doing the Lincoln Center, which is on West Shore and Kennedy. And we ended up finding it was almost done. So my dad had all the tile, the stone, vertical and horizontal in the place, and we found a cool, place to eat lunch. And our lunches were supposed to be 30 minutes, and we would push them to an hour plus. And so we had a good time. And we also worked that summer at the Tampa Bay Performing Arts, and he was doing all the stone work there, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I was. I was thinking of that what part of you realized that this was going to be your future? Did you run away from it? Being an individual legacy here from the construction world, from the building world, a lot to live up to. Did you ever look at this and say, you know what, I'm good. I'm going to go do my own thing. There's really no reason for me to try to follow my father's footsteps?
Yeah, well, actually, I went to University of Florida, and after school, I ended up getting a job with General Mills. So for 18 years, I was in the consumer product goods industry. So I did sales and marketing, and a lot of various roles, general management, and every job that I had to move. And thank God my wife's a nurse, so she always got a better job. But every place that we would move to,
what other cities were you into?
We got married out of college, and the first city was Orlando, and then it was Atlanta, then back to Tampa, then Tampa to Greenwich, Connecticut, and then Connecticut.
That must have been great. She probably thought you were coming home to Tampa. That was going to be it. Next thing you know, sweetheart, we're moving to Connecticut. But I heard Greenwich is nice.
Yeah, it's great.
So when you're moving all over these places, you're going to Atlanta, you're going to Orlando, obviously Greenwich, Connecticut, a lot of big time Wall Street money that reside there and retired there. Do you pull off the ideas that you see there from an architecture standpoint, design standpoint? Do you grab and pull from all those different cities that you lived in to bring a unique flavor to the Tampa Bay region?
Yeah, there's a house that we're building right now on Bayshore where it's in design phase right now, and it's very similar to an architect that we liked up in Greenwich, Connecticut. So it's sort of a traditional / modern transitional home inside, but it's a traditional home with a lot of modern flair. Yeah. And it's one of the ideas came from Greenwich, Connecticut. But yeah, there's a lot of great architecture up there. A lot of money.
Yeah,
There's
a lot of
very
money.
humble experience there. There's that line of demarcation between the wealthy and the middle class.
Yeah, well, I went to
thick.
school up there, and I remember my buddy saying, "Hey, I'm going to go to my friend's house in Greenwich, Connecticut," and I was just thinking, he's like, "You want to come?" And I was like, "It was only one train." And I was thinking, Connecticut, I was 18 years old. I didn't know anything. My school was in northern New Jersey near Secaucus. My playground was Manhattan at the time. And I was like, I'm not going to go to Connecticut. That's ridiculous. What a ridiculous notion that is. I went there and I was like, oh my God. You just felt so insignificant the moment you stepped foot in that small little cookie cutter, beautiful, picturesque town, because all the houses are just, it's almost West Palm Beach up there.
Yeah, it's funny story, but when my wife and I moved up there, we lived in corporate housing for 2 months. My job was in Greenwich, Connecticut. It was with Unilever at the time, and she was a nurse. She had just gotten her nurse practitioner, so she was going to work in the city. So we tried the city. It was in the, it was January 2000, and the market was just on a tear, before 2001, the crash, and we just decided, we were like, hey, we can't find anything that was affordable in New York City, so let's give Greenwich a try, and at least we'll be close to someone's work. Because the goal was, to do really well and get promoted and get out of there.
Yeah.
And I remember we were so happy. We finally found a home. We put it under contract. We moved in. I took pictures, sent it to my dad, and my dad had all my brothers at the house one day. and it was this, it was a pretty, moderate home, but it's really expensive up there. And I remember my dad calling me the next day. He was like, your brother said that they didn't really like that house. I was like, they need to come up here and look how expensive everything is, and then they could make another
That's funny.
decision.
So you send the pictures to your. How many brothers do you have?
4.
You have 4 brothers. Where are you in the pecking order?
I'm the youngest of 5.
There you go.
Yeah.
And so everything is scrutinized. Everything is judged. Then, huh?
Yeah.
So are your brothers? Are they also in the real estate business?
Yeah. I got my brother Wilfred does very similar to what my father used to do. So it's a commercial flooring and stone contractor. Mm-hmm. And John and Vincent work together at Ramos Marble and Granite on Armenia. They've done a lot of great stuff and a lot of homes. They've probably been in more homes than many of the businesses here in Tampa for, I think, over 25 years now. And then my brother Paul works in banking. He's been in banking. He does real well. In mortgage banking for years, 30 plus years. So I'm the general contractor of the family, the youngest brother. Mm-hmm. We're in ReMax. I have 4 ReMaxes, across Hillsborough and Pinellas, and my main cup of tea is general contracting with Ramos Design Build. Mm-hmm. So it's fun, we work together. Some projects we don't.
Is there nice little family fighting and arguing about which stone and marble to lay on this project or what to do there?
We're family of 5 boys, so we were always competing and things like that. So
your mom just wouldn't, no matter what she tried, couldn't get a girl.
It was a fun house to live in, because I never wanted to go to camp. If I went to camp or if I left, I didn't know what my brothers were going to do that night. I was always missing them. So it was a fun upbringing and a lot of love in the family. But we're Hispanic. Italian and Sicilian and Cuban Spanish descent. So we're pretty passionate about all that we do, and how we talk and deliver our message is pretty direct. So at
There's
times
a lot of arguing going on, but it's all good fun. Yeah. So when you look at the Hillsborough Pinellas area, people love to say, like Mayor Greco, he loves to say that Tampa was born in diversity, and just the idea of just how the city came about and came to prominence with all different types of cultures, race, religions, all together, bringing the city up and pulling the city together. When you think about that, does that make Tampa a unique market to build a home for? Who are you trying to target? You just can't throw up a Mediterranean house and call it a day. How do you go about taking that kind of knowledge, drawing off that kind of experience growing up, and deciding what type of house somebody will be targeted to?
Right. Well, what's great? Well, the first piece is that we have so many great pieces of property. Being in South Tampa, being in a peninsula, and a lot of great areas in Hillsborough and Pinellas. So first, you have some great land to build on. And as far as the architecture, we're a big melting pot. So so we have a good Latin community, which is growing strong, and there's a lot of great roots from the different people that have brought Tampa Bay to where it's at today. So whether traditional or Mediterranean, there's a lot of modern homes that are popular right now that are going up, not at as fast as rate as in Sarasota.
Yeah.
Where most of it started. The modern, piece started years ago in Sarasota. But as far as, the design, I mean, you can pretty much pull off any design in any neighborhood.
Yeah.
That's, that you would want to put $1 million plus, home on.
Yeah.
Which is great. So you see in
what's interesting about that $1 million plus home you were talking about, obviously that's some people's price range and a lot of others not, but when you were in Greenwich and going back to the time in Connecticut, you didn't have these neighborhoods where you've got like $1 million home and then maybe a $200,000 home sitting right next to each other. I mean, that is Florida. That is what Florida represents. That's what Tampa represents.
Right.
When you're in Connecticut, that's not what it is. Entire neighborhoods are just, this is the price point. You either got it or you don't. And if you don't got it, go find a better job. So when you look at Tampa and Florida, does that put a unique problem on your doorstep, or is that something that people you have to educate the buyer moving in?
Well, first off, if you look at Tampa, and any major city, any treed area, non-restricted neighborhood closest to downtown, whether it's Atlanta or New York or San Francisco, any big city in America, I mean, you're going to have the highest, yielding land, dollar per foot for land. And what's great about Tampa is that it's still affordable.
Yeah.
We see it with Vinnick amassing the amount of acreage that he did in
42
downtown.
acres, right?
I think it's more.
Yeah.
He's been able
Well,
to
the
put
Water
together.
Street project, I think, was 42 acres. Yeah.
So I think that's a big driver, that we have great, land to build on. We have a diverse set of architecture pieces, and there's not many neighborhoods that have all the restrictions that you would see in in the outskirts of Tampa or any major city, with a lot of restrictions and the big wall in front of the neighborhood and things like that. In South Tampa, for example, the only gated, communities is Harbor Island and Cobra Thals.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you think about that in context of, of how you go about putting those things in line. I was thinking about something you mentioned earlier. You mentioned something earlier where you talked about how, obviously being a broker, you get calls and you field calls about, development and about listings and things of that nature. You're now getting calls from people who are actually wanting just to have an investment property in the city of Tampa or St. Petersburg. Is that something that you've seen a recent trend growing? Has that something that's always been relevant? Because, when you talk to people from the Northeast, which we both spent time there, obviously it was basically Fort Lauderdale, Miami, West Palm Beach. That was like their playground. That continues to be their playground. Are you saying that there's been a shift here in the state of Florida to people recognizing now the value of the Tampa Bay region?
It's slowly but surely, and it's gradually building year over year. So, when you look at the state of Florida, Miami has always been the international driver.
Yeah.
So if you would go and look at a condominium project and let's say, Clearwater to St. Pete, call what any, let's just say Madeira Beach, you look at these condos and you look at the price per foot.
Continue our conversation here. I'm Dan Maduri with host James Ramos of the Move With Me program. Going back to the family aspect of it. So when you're looking to build a house, right, and you go to your brothers who, they've got concrete, tile, marble flooring business, do they give you the most competitive price, or do you got to fight for every square inch of the price in the deal there?
They do. They absolutely do. And we're so passionate about stuff. Everybody wants it to go through, and especially me being the youngest brother, they don't want me to complain. Of course. And just as
you go tell, do you still tell mom? Do you still tell mom? How does that work?
Yeah.
You still tell mom?
When it gets tough, we'll share with her, one-on-one. But absolutely, they have incredible companies with great, consumers that have loved them for a long time. So absolutely, that's our first choice. They're our preferred vendor, whether it relates to flooring or stone and things like that. But it's really, the hats that I wear, there's several. So as a general contractor, you're always looking out for the homeowner, so you can recommend we sign these contracts through the AIA. So ultimately it gives the homeowner and the owner of the project autonomy to select and choose what they want. So the first phase, we take them through design and we put budgets, and then we give them all our preferred vendors. If they choose to go and use a window guy from a friend of theirs or what have you, we can either, they can either pay direct, or if they have the insurances and things that we need, we sign them on as a subcontractor. So, we tend to use my brothers most of the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Especially if they're going to give you the most competitive pricing there. You mentioned all the hats that you wear, all the different types of hats that you wear. Which one do you find yourself gravitating to more often than not? What do you prefer?
The design and construction.
Really?
Yeah.
So you prefer that more than being real estate agent, more than being everything else?
Yeah, well, that's what I know best.
Yeah.
But I have 3 hats. So it's the real estate brokerage world, and we have title and mortgage and insurance there, and then the general contracting and development, which is also design, and then we have a products company, Dakota Kitchen and Bath. So as far as what I know best and what I saw growing up, was my dad being a general contractor and dealing with the subs and dealing with the clients and working through and building stuff. So that's the most closest to my heart. But there's no better thing to do when you're, meeting with a family. And I love residential. A lot of people are like, I'm crazy. You should go do more commercial stuff because it's less intimate. It's not as emotional and a lot of things like that, that you would suspect. But as far as
but it means something more though.
It does.
Commercial is very impersonal, where residential is you're building somebody their home that you're hoping they stay in for the rest of their lives, that their kids grow in, that they have 5 boys in, and they raise them accordingly.
We've built a nice model where we don't have to take on as much work as a typical contractor to make a living.
Yeah.
Because I do other things, but it helps me focus more on being a general contractor. So when we do take these clients on, what's exciting is that I tend to build higher end homes, but they're wealthy people. They've been around the block a few times, so they know what they're talking about. They typically have owners, reps, and attorneys and whatnot. But as far as the decisions that they make, when the fact that their kids are putting their head on that pillow, it's much different than if they just did a CapEx expense.
It is much different. We'll finish that thought when we return here on the Move With Me program. Dan Maduri, James Ramos. Welcome back to the Move With Me program. I'm Dan Maduri with host James Ramos of Ramos Design and Build and jamesramos.com. So when we went to break, we were talking about the difference between commercial and residential, and why you gravitate more towards building a home. So the idea of just family and family being such a part of what you do on a day-to-day lifestyle. You obviously you work with your 4 brothers to a certain degree. And you like providing houses and designing houses where people can buy and raise their families. What is it about the idea of providing a house to individuals that you do find so compelling?
Yeah, a home for most people is the most expensive item that they buy for their family. So what resonates, it's the common thread between the 3 businesses that I had mentioned is the fact that all the agents, whether it's one of the 80, 90 agents that we have, or the designers, the contractors, or the folks that work, any of the folks that work in my company, we all work and we basically bring the family back to the table. People want to upgrade or downsize, but the point is that they want a great place for their family.
Yeah.
And so that's been one of my themes is bringing the family back to the table. But it's great because it's so passionate and it's so intimate that when they make these decisions, it's a big deal, and we treat it that way.
Yeah. And if somebody wanted to become a vendor with you, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, the vendor program. Well, we have we have multiple vendors. So if you look at the phase from the buy and the sell, somebody buying the home, there's vendors that are going to tend to call on our real estate brokerage. So it'd be the home warranty folks and home inspectors and people of that nature, warranty. contractors that they would want to get in front of agents, a lot of mortgage companies and so forth. And then as far as, from that transaction period on, you have vendors with my construction businesses in related to, anything from demolition all the way through, landscaping, and then after that phase, you have home maintenance folks. So we're able to really pull a lot of vendors and a lot of folks, from A to Z, in the process. And the process of developing of onboarding a vendor, I mean, first off, it comes both ways. If we're looking for a particular metal guy and we need some special metal or something unique, we're going to go out and find those folks. And then on any given week, we probably have 15 to 20 calls of folks that are actually signing up. We point them to a link at one of our sites, and they come in and they sign up. They pre-qualify with all the insurance and the rules that we have. They have to get pre-qualified. We have to see some references. They have to have proper insurance.
Yeah.
Whether it's workman's comp and general liability. We've stopped in our construction business hiring people that are workman's comp exempt, unfortunately, because it's just too cloudy there. But as far as becoming a vendor, I mean, it's a big onboarding process. So when we're working with clients and they say, hey, I found this guy and he really wants to give a bid and do some work. I mean, it takes 2-3 hours to really onboard them properly. So we're real selective in that nature, but we're trying to streamline that. It's on the web, it's a web form, and it's pretty clean.
Yeah. Well, when you look around the Hillsborough County, Pinellas area specifically, I constantly hear this conversation. It feels like 2007 again. I mean, people are they're buying like crazy. Are you getting that feeling that maybe we are reaching a bubble simmering point, or is there something different here? Because as you mentioned, there are a lot of certain things, like the banking industry just hasn't given mortgages like they were giving them out anymore, like it was OxyContin to young kids or whatever it might be. They still have it clamped down. So does this feel different to you than 2007 when the real estate market collapsed here?
Well, I mean, much of that collapse was due to how we were giving mortgages out. And these banks and mortgage companies are doing a better job, number one. But as far as, when I look at the inventory, I'll give you some numbers here, Dan. So we have roughly in the month of June, let's say, in Hillsborough County, I'll give you these stats, and then as the weeks come, we can move into other counties. But 2,020 homes were sold, and roughly, 20% of them were cash. Okay. So typically it's like an 80-20. So that's about $625 million. And this is the highest month in the last 12 months. So it's very seasonal, so typically, at the end of, right at June, the beginning of the summer, you're going to have these transactions, and then you're going to have transactions, and it's going to be typically tied to the school year.
Yeah.
But as far as the average sale price, we're up 7%. The time to contract is down 12 from last, June in 2016. So we're at 25 days. I mean, we have 2.8 months of supply, which is low.
Yeah.
So when you ask a typical agent, I mean, we have less to sell.
Yeah.
So there's more creativity that's needed to be competitive. As an agent out there, the agent count is growing, of course, when the market.
How do you market your properties? I mean, if the market is less to sell, you're trying to get it in front of the right type of person. It's not as easy as just throwing up a for sale sign and having a flag saying open house on Sunday. I mean, obviously you mentioned that there's major outside buying influence now in the Tampa, Hillsborough, Pinellas region. How do you go about marketing your properties?
Yeah, I mean, just like anything, as technology increases, the more things change, they stay the same. So as with in the technology world, you have Zillow, and Realtor.com, and a lot of these websites. So they're doing what they can, make no mistake about it, to eliminate an intermediary as best that they can. Yet they need us, because we give them the opportunity to take our listings and then resell them back to us for advertising dollars. But you have, the online piece there, and you have a lot of creative brokerages that are growing all over America right now. And you have a lot of great agents that are doing a lot of things outside of just buying and selling. So they're getting equipped to, helping staging homes, to, having a little bit better depth as it relates to the design and construction world. So rather than putting somebody in your in your car for another 2 weeks, as an example, it's probably best to actually have some connections with some contractors and subs and things to actually maybe make that kitchen a little bit better.
Yeah.
Maybe do that expansion that they really want. Add the pool that's not there.
I want to go back to what you mentioned, because you're staging homes. If the product is built well with the right type of whatever fixtures and whatever might else be in there, staging really necessary. If you always talk about like the importance of staging a home, I mean, are people just a buyer doesn't have the imagination to walk in and envision their own stuff in it? They've got to see someone else's, like some other's couch or whatever it might be.
It's hard. I mean, with all the channels, with the Home and Garden Network and all this.
I mean, staging worth it, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it absolutely does. I mean, it cuts through the clutter, and you can see the forest through the tree, and that type of statement. So it absolutely does, and it helps. And people sometimes people take for granted, but the most difficult thing when you think about it, if you're selling a home, nobody wants to go in and put another $30,000 before they sell it.
Yeah,
that's the last thing people want to do. So as it relates to the staging, you don't necessarily have to come in. The first thing is obviously to get rid of a lot of the clutter.
Yeah.
Which is an easy peasy thing to do. Not always, but as far as, getting rid of the clutter is the first phase. And then secondly, a lot of these great agents out there are going out and getting bids for things that they know is going to be a common hurdle. If the kitchen is all closed in and that, the typical person is going to want an open, floor plan, go out and get the plan.
Mm-hmm.
And, and that subcontractor that's doing that work, maybe takes a modest fee, and they get the first invite to the table when they have somebody that's interested.
Yeah.
Because that agent is going to know, what those concerns are when they walk people through the home.
Yeah.
And the faster that they can mitigate those concerns, the faster they're going to get a contract, and the faster they're going to go from contract to sale.
Now, do you see the average home price in the Tampa Bay region moving up? Do you see the average home price move? Because I was reading how people are obviously they're descending upon Florida. 1,000 people a day are moving here, but I was reading specifically how West Coast Floridians are moving, or East Coast Floridians rather, are moving to the West Coast because it is more affordable, like we talked about earlier. Right. So do you envision a day in which West Coast Florida price points are somewhat on par with East Coast price points, or no?
That's a tough one, but I do agree with you as far as having parity price points. I think that's a tough one. I mean, if you look at California, I mean, people were moving to Vegas, and then the Vegas people, they're now moving to Utah.
Yeah.
Or California is now bypassing Vegas and moving
Santa
to
Fe,
Utah,
New Mexico.
Yeah, and in New Mexico and things like that. So as far as Florida, I don't ever see a Miami, a St. Pete Beach condo being more expensive, per square foot than a South Beach, in Miami condo.
Yeah.
That would be great for us, but I don't see that in our lifetime. But I do see a lot of the folks from the East Coast moving to the West, and then I see the people that are coming to Florida actually open their eyes, to the Tampa Bay area.
Now, how does a person know whether or not they should sell their home if they're looking for a bigger space? How do they know whether or not they should sell their home, whether they should demo their home and start from scratch, or whether they should just renovate their home? How do they make that decision?
A lot of times we go in parity, in parallel paths, meaning, most people don't. They tend to say, look, I want this, how I get there, I don't really know. So we'll go in parallel paths, meaning we'll look at the renovation side as well as looking at the new, ground up construction. But typically, the rule of thumb is that I like to say is if you're doing a renovation and you're touching more than a quarter of the home, then you probably want to just demo it.
Yeah.
Now there's constraints
Why
around.
did you come up with that number?
Because a typical renovation per square foot is going to cost more.
Yeah.
So from the trades, especially the mechanical trades, running wire without sheetrock is obviously a lot cheaper, in a new home than it would be, cutting into sheetrock and running wire and making things fit.
That reminds me to bring up when you bring up sheetrock and running wire and things like, do you get tired of hearing people? I mean, there's this old, adage really where people say, well, they just don't build them like they used to.
Right.
Does that bother you when you hear that?
No.
Because it's like you're not doing like cut rate work. I mean, what is it about people building today that it's just viewed as it wasn't as good or as solid or as quality as the way we used to build homes back in like the 1950s?
Well, there's a lot of truth to that, So, in the 70s and 80s, the homes just weren't built as good, plain and simple, versus the 50s. So there's a lot of truth to that.
So if you have a house that's built in 1950, you don't want to demo that, do you?
Well, it depends. I mean, one of the things that I didn't mention is FEMA. So if you're trying to renovate and it's below 11.5 feet of sea level, which there's a lot of parts in Hillsborough and Pinellas that are, your scare is the flood insurance, number one. But what holds you back is that you can only increase the home by 50% of that value. So for example, if you go in your Hillsborough County or Pinellas County tax records or any county municipality, you'll look at your home and let's say your home is worth, total package is worth $300K, right? So of that $300K, there's going to be 3 parts to that. There's going to be your land value, okay? Your home value and those extra features. And extra features would be, if you have brick pavers on your driveway, if you have a pool or a dock or things like that. But the most important one is that home value. So typically if a home is 20, 30 years old, it depreciates, right? So it could only be worth 80 to 100 grand. So let's say if it's worth 100 grand and you're below that FEMA, 11.5 feet, or there's some electrical issues that you have to bring up to code or other types of restrictions. But let's just go with the FEMA code. You can only do a renovation that's worth $50,000, and you're not going to be doing much with that. So in those cases, outside of the home being historic, where you literally can't tear it down, most of the time it makes more sense to just start from scratch.
Yeah. Well, why would somebody buy a historic house that they couldn't just? I mean, it's almost
that's
like
a great question.
It's like you own it, but you don't own it. I mean, it's like what is the point of this? What is the purpose of this?
The most famous area in Tampa Bay is Hyde Park. And it's a great area to live. It's close to Bayshore. It's close to Hyde Park, and Hyde Park is now changing over. I mean, I mean, some people care to, it's just like I like to joke around, and when people say that, do you like that dresser drawer that's an antique that, none of the drawers really open and close every single day of your life? And it takes some TLC to keep those drawers moving with a candle wax underneath the drawer? Or are you that type of person that wants a home that's warranted, that's brand new? And some people just tend to like those historic homes. Well, I tell you,
I like character.
Yeah. I mean, when those homes are renovated, though, there's nothing better.
Yeah.
They're beautiful.
Yeah.
But the act of renovating those homes are, $300 plus a foot.
Yeah.
It's expensive, and it takes time because there's, the extra boards that oversee, what type of roof shingle and color and window size and, the mutton bars on the window and a lot of things, a lot of people, a lot of hands in the pot there, helping you make those decisions, whether you like it or not.
And we'll continue our conversation here on the Move With Me program with host James Ramos of Ramos Design and Build and jamesramos.com. I'm Dan Maduri. Continue our conversation here with James Ramos, the host of the Move With Me program. We obviously, being an industry expert, real estate market, you wear many hats. You've been in it. You're a legacy individual, like we've discussed. Your parents were in it. Your brothers are in it. Why move into the media market? Why a radio show? What are you looking to accomplish?
Well, first off, many of us say, or many folks say, that I have a lot to talk about. But, you guys were kind enough to do a radio show. I was a guest on the Dick Greco show during a demolition that we did on Bayshore Boulevard. And I think one of the genesis behind it is that I want, the best for Tampa Bay, So I don't think that there's a show out there that's highlighting the best as it relates to architects and these great designers and some of these agents that are doing an amazing job. And a lot of the folks in the design, build, buy, and sell world, in real estate. And it's just an exciting, opportunity right now in the times that we live in and in the growth and what the mayor has done with the city and all the, the county commissioners and just the momentum and what Vinnick's doing downtown. And I think it's just going to be a fun show. We're going to have a lot of, great guests that are all related to the design and build and real estate communities. And I'm looking forward to just illustrating and highlighting some of the great stuff that they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and moving forward, obviously, you want to talk about future projects and visions that you also have for the city of Tampa, because you're obviously very well vested in the city and you feel a deep personal connection here.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I was fortunate after, University of Florida to have 18 years of just corporate experience, like I had mentioned earlier. So coming into this industry, this is my passion. This is not something that I had to do because I had an inroad or things like that. So this is very personal to me. But and a lot of great folks out there, you just don't have the opportunity to do your day to day, to manage a family, and then go to lunch every day like I should with a new person. It's just impossible. So the opportunity to have a show, we're going to have podcasts and we're going to have all types of video blogs and things like that can help a lot of these hard workers out there that are doing some amazing things, highlight their, spotlight what they're doing and their careers and things. I think is just a great combination.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of people want to move into the real estate market. I mean, every person I walk into, they've all got their real estate license now. So what is it about the real estate industry that it just seems like it's not a default a license for people to get, but there's something sexy about it.
Yeah,
there's just
it's
this
tangible.
idea where they just want to get it and they just want to be a part of that.
Yeah, and you work off of the best stories, right? You tend to forget the horror stories. So what's great about it is that it's a tangible asset, and it's something that, with sweat and equity, you can create, some profit there, and just people like it, because it tends to, not just be an investment, but it's going to obviously be something special for the family, if it's residential. And the commercial side is booming too. It's a wonderful thing. I mean, there's more and more companies, there's more personal chefs and things like that. And it's a great time because the entrepreneurial side of folks really comes out, and it really revolves around our real estate, industry, and the opportunity for people to have, whether it's a warehouse or, a little storefront or these cooperatives that are becoming more and more popular, to have some sort of entryway to get themselves highlighted and out there. So real estate is, it's one of those first steps. It could be, in a lot of businesses, it's the most expensive piece for their puzzle, to work. So getting a good lease and getting a good location and things like that, it's paramount.
Yeah, what do you envision a listener of this program? What kind of knowledge are they going to gain? What are you hoping to, just baptize them with?
I think the basics are, like what we had said in the promo. I mean, if you're looking to, to move up or, to downsize, I think those basics, hopefully will get answered, and a little, taste of what's going on in the market. And I think it's important when people are sitting on, their biggest asset for the most part, to recognize, what the city is all about, and to kind of clear up some of these myths, whether, we're going to have another, downturn in the economy, and, how far, I talk about the runway. I feel like we have a long runway, but, some people tend to say, hey, it's going to be, shorter than what people think and things like that. But I think the more education that you can provide, folks, and the more that they can take in, they're going to have a better level of confidence as to what assets they typically have, and the value, and, when they're ready to sell or when they're ready to buy. They're just going to be that much more educated.
Now, why'd you go to University of Florida?
I played baseball there.
Yeah, what position?
I was a catcher.
Oh, yeah? How'd you like catching?
It was great.
I couldn't stand catching. It wasn't my legs or my knees or anything like that. It's just the foul tips right to the chest and right to the thighs. That always bothered me. I hated getting hit with the baseball.
Having the gear on, you're kind of like, kind of like a superhero. You're protected, and you got a cup on, you got a chest protector.
How many games did you catch there?
I caught my last 2 years almost every game.
Wow.
And then there was a period there when I was doing really well, I would catch double headers, which would be the best. So we would play. We had a plane, which was kind of cool. I always tell my kids that we used to fly to games in a plane at the University of Florida. I think they have a jet now, but we would have double headers in our SEC games. We would have double headers on on Saturday, and then we would have the third game on Sunday,
Yeah.
and then we would jump on our plane and get back so we could study and do whatever we were going to do.
Did you ever have anyone when you come across them in your industry? Do you ever have them say like, oh, I can't do business with your Gator? Like if they're Seminole, do you ever feel any type of rivalry there, or do people just like they temper that basic emotion?
No, not to the extent that they're not going to do business with you. It usually comes down to the dollar.
Yeah, it comes down to square. This Florida Gator over here won't give me the deal I want. Yeah, I can imagine. And did your brothers go? Did they go to UF too?
No, actually, my brother John went to Stanford. He played baseball there. Paul went to University of West Florida. Wilford went to Auburn University.
Yeah.
And my brother Vincent went to Elon College.
Wow.
Yeah. So
you
so
keep
it's
them all
diverse.
straight. I mean, people
Yeah.
ask me where my sisters and my brother. I have no idea.
Yeah,
no
yeah.
idea. I don't know. I can tell you where I went. I can tell you where I went. They went to so many different schools. Move With Me program here. James Ramos, the host of Ramos Design and Build, and jamesramos.com. Great first program. Loved it. Can't wait to do it again. It's going to be a great time, and it's going to be a program that people are going to get the best insider knowledge when it comes to real estate, when it comes to the housing market, when it comes to new construction, renovation, all of those things. Go to jamesramos.com. James, I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks for joining us today. If you missed all of the program or want to hear it again, listen to the podcast on jamesramos.com or on YouTube at Ramos Media Network. See you next week with Ramos Design Build, Tampa Bay's premier real estate, design, build, and construction company.